just cannot conceive of how anyone would believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, the only way, the Bible is sufficient. And this idea that, well, once you have knowledge of who Jesus is, then those old covenant sacrifices to engage in them is to reject who Jesus Christ is. Oh, no, we just all need to get along. And don't say that there has to be this strong split. Don't say that kind of thing. That's not loving. Well, I suggest to you that someone who would say, oh, you can go along and you can worship any way you want to. If you want to offer sacrifices and believe in Jesus and do this self-help methodology and this kind of spiritualism, it doesn't matter. I suggest to you that shows no love whatsoever for God and for His truth and for His revelation, for His gospel. It's a very man-centered way of thinking. And so here you have these people, they're being drawn back, and so what is the main point? Well, you see that high priest on the Day of Atonement, that he is so regally decked out in his priestly garments. But you see, we have a high priest. And he's not like that high priest. He's no longer under the dominion of death. He conquered death. He's risen from the dead. And in fact, unlike your high priest who goes in only once per year, and then he has to come back out, and he has to go in the next year, and he has to come back out, we have a high priest, and he has taken his seat. That means his work's finished. He's not continually moving about in the holy place, making sprinkling the blood, and then leaves. He has taken his seat. And notice where it is, at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in the heavens. Right hand, the position of authority, the position of exaltation. Remember, the disciples asked Jesus, who gets to sit at your right hand? Could we sit at your right hand? We don't want to be at your left hand. We don't want to be in a lower position. We want to be at the position of authority. Well, we have such a high priest. And he's taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in the heavens. The position of divine authority. He's a minister in the sanctuary. A minister in the sanctuary. He is one who does not have to go in and out, in and out. He's a minister in the sanctuary and in the true tabernacle which the Lord pitched, not man. Now, here we need to understand something. Again, drawing upon our knowledge of the Old Testament. We know the temple was not the first place of worship that was built. When God brought the people out of Egypt, He revealed to Moses the plans for the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was a mobile place of worship. And in fact, if you've read through the giving of the instructions, you know that it was in essence a tent. It was mobile. It was set up when the people would stop. And it represented the presence of God with them, but it also represented the fact that God wasn't limited to one place. The ancient religions would very frequently have temples. But the God became associated with just that location. And frequently that temple would be at a place where allegedly something very special had happened in the past. And in pagan religions that became very important. And unfortunately we see that once the temple itself was built in Jerusalem, well, it was pretty difficult for the people of Israel to avoid the temptations toward idolatry. And eventually, what happens is you have God having to send prophets to stand outside the temple and say, you boast in this place, but the glory is going to leave this place because you have rejected God's law. You've rejected His will for your lives. So many people kept being very religious. They come to the temple. They thought that coming to that temple somehow made themselves right with God. God would never allow this place And so this is that sanctuary here on earth. But notice the contrast is made here in the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched, not man. They're using the language, once again, the writer of Hebrews wants to focus on the tabernacle, not on the temple, which had become so much a focus. He instead says, well, look, what was given by God in the law is the tabernacle. And so he even used the term pitch. See, man would pitch the tabernacle. There were certain people who were entrusted with certain activities in erecting the tabernacle. And certain people had to carry certain parts of it, and the priests were all involved, and all these things. And so there was a very complicated process that was gone through, but that's not where our high priest is. He's not in a tabernacle that is pitched by man. He is in the true tabernacle, which is in heaven. You see, the point that the writer is going to make is the earthly sanctuary was simply meant to be a shadow, a representation, and a lesser picture of the reality which is in heaven. And so his assertion is, we have a high priest. He has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in the heavens, a minister in the sanctuary, in the true tabernacle. So God is there. His presence is still amongst his people in that way, which the Lord pitched, not man. See the supremacy of being a high priest in the true tabernacle? What he's saying is, look, if you go back, you're going back to something that is not the true tabernacle. It's merely an earthly, man-made representation of the divine, and Jesus has gone into the divine. Your high priest can never get over there. He then sort of spells that out for us. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and sacrifices. So it is necessary that this high priest also have something to offer. Okay, we know the priest, he has a task. He has a job. It's not just the great respect that was shown to the high priest was not just simply because, well, that's who he is, and he gets to wear cool clothes and things like that. No, he has a function in the worship of the people of God. He is appointed to offer both gifts and sacrifices. Sacrifices for sin, the free will offerings, the gifts that people would bring in thanksgiving to God for his bounteous mercy to them. And so, this high priest, the high priest after the order of Melchizedek, it would be necessary that this high priest also have something to offer. But what does he offer? Well, now if he were on earth, verse 4 says, he would not be a priest at all, since there are those who offer the gifts according to law. But think about that. Of what tribe is the Lord Jesus? Is he of the tribe of Levi? Is he one of the sons of Aaron? No, he's the tribe of Judah. And so, there is no pretension on the part of Jesus in his teaching to be a priest after the order of Aaron or Levi. He never goes into the temple to offer sacrifices, does he? If he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all. Since, and here's that indication, did you catch it? Since there are those who offer the gifts according to the law. Now, I can't say that it proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But the use of the present tense there most naturally would refer to the fact that this is something that's going on. There are those who offer the gifts according to the law. But let me guarantee you something. After Titus got done with Jerusalem in AD 70, there was nobody offering the gifts according to the law in the temple of Jerusalem, because it had been razed to the ground. And so it would seem that the natural reading of this text would tell us this was probably written no later than the 60s, prior to the surrounding of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, while the temple worship was still a regular, ongoing thing. But the point is, of course, Jesus did not claim this priesthood. He would not be a priest at all. There is no question that there were those who had been appointed as the children of Levi to offer the gifts according to the law. But where they are offering it, notice, who serve a copy. A copy, a shadow of the heavenly thing. Do you see how this fits the argument, once again, of the book of Hebrews? It could have been really impressive, I'm sure. The apostles were impressed. Remember Matthew 24? They're on a hill outside of Jerusalem, and what you would have seen. How the temple precincts would dominate what you would see as you looked at that ancient city of Jerusalem. Just as now, what dominates the skyline? The Dome of the Rock, the Muslim mosque there. They were so impressed. Look at the temple. It's been very impressive. When people come and seek to bring Christians into apostasy, to fall away from the faith, they normally have attacks upon the faith, but they always try to present something positive, some alternative for you to go to. And yet the writer's saying, shadows. Copies. Now, we've got photocopiers today, and they're pretty